little gal named Sally Gooden, and I asked her to marry me, then she said you wouldn't.
Here we are again in the wonderful Ozark Mountains, and I believe this video would be called anchoring, or how about staying in one spot, because I'm going to talk about keeping the kayak at least somewhat stationary and anchoring. Now, one of the things you can see, or I should say not see, if this video is called anchoring, where is your anchor? Where's that anchor trolley? Heaven forbid that you don't have an anchor trolley. Well, did it fall off? Did somebody take it? No. I don't have an anchor. I don't have an anchor trolley. I didn't do some magical, wonderful thing with an anchor trolley that everybody thinks they need to have when they start out with kayaking. Now, granted, it may have its uses in some cases, but my goodness, the effort, the time, the expense, dealing with making and maintaining and positioning an anchor is just too much not worth it. Too much of a pain. It's dangerous, can be dangerous, even in the best of circumstances. So I decided early on, no anchor. If I'm really in that swift of water, I really shouldn't be there in the first place. Or at least I shouldn't be trying to stay in one spot. But I have done a couple of other things that I have found very useful besides an anchor. One of them is to hold on to a piece of brush. So you have seen probably in some stores these wire brush hangers, brush holders, just little scissor type things. Well, I've done the same thing, except I didn't buy one of those. They're fairly cheap. But what I did have that looked awful lot like it are these. Look familiar? To some of you, probably. That's right, it's a light holder. This is for positionable lights with the hood and the reflector, I should say, the reflector, where it attaches to this ball up here, and then this springs open to attach to a variety of things. Well, I had this laying around. I don't know what happened to the reflector or the other light parts, but I had this laying around thinking, I could use that someday for something. Lo and behold, there we are. It's really about the same thing. So what I did is I attached my, yep, that's right, handy dandy retractable dog leash. Fairly heavy duty one. It'll handle about a 100-pound dog or so. Looped it around this. Whenever I'm at a lake, some rivers, if it's not moving very fast at all, but especially lakes around here, they will tend to have trees, stubs sticking out of the water, at least somewhat. And that's happens to be a good place to fish. So I'll take this out. I normally have it stashed back here, just hooked on, and this up inside. So I'll take this out and hook it onto that. Sometimes I can put that over the end, just hook it. Sometimes I clamp it. Very good thing. Now the other advantage to this is I can pull this out. Say I wanted to stay within about a 15-20 foot range. Pull this out and then lock this. You can see where I've locked that. So now I can't pull that out anymore. That stays put. And that allows the boat the kayak, to swing around with the breeze and currents within so far of a range. Whenever I'm done, I'll either paddle back or I'll reach back with this and pull myself up close, unhook, throw this in the back, and I'm ready to go. Okay, now the other part of this is, say that I'm somewhere where I don't have a piece of brush or a tree top sticking out. What can I do then? Well, I take that part off and I come over here to my stakeout. Stakeout pole, I guess I should say. Attach it here. And again, little bitty dogs, little bitty dog collar attached to the handle. This one just happens to be an extension for a paint roller. I'm just looped around here. If you use wood, you just put a hole through it. You know what you can do. The very end of this is metal. There's a little plastic there, but I took some of that off. Bit of metal. Coming here, stake that into some mud or sand, which we rarely have, and let that act as the pivot point. Now, I have heard some people taking these poles and putting them through the scupper holes, because the scupper holes go all the way through your kayak, and using it that way. Well, that might be fine. The problem with that is that you'd have to have a very small pole to go into that scupper hole on this kayak. But the other thing is that I can't imagine that would be very good over the long term for those scupper holes. A lot of stress on that, and I'd rather do it this way, have a little bit more flexibility in what I'm doing, where I can stake this out, where I can put it, where I can position it. I could have this thing attached to the very end over here, that part of it attached here, or to the front. I'd rather do that than mess with an integral part of the kayak and risk tearing it up. Now, here in the Ozarks, what I have found, rivers, streams, lakes even, has kind of a limited use for this stakeout pole. We have a lot of bedrock, not a heck of a lot of sand. We have in some places a lot of gravel, but it is hard packed, and it can be really tough to get a stakeout pole in there deep enough to make a difference. But I have used that in some cases, and it has worked pretty well. The other advantage to this is it fits right in this groove. Nice and perfect. Just fits right inside here. Unobtrusive. I can use my holder here, and that stays right there, and it doesn't interfere with anything. Now what you're going to notice is, hey, wait a minute, there's two of them. Surely you don't anchor with both of them. No, I really don't. What I do though, is that in an emergency, and sometimes not even an emergency, I will use both of these poles if I'm camping with the kayak. And these will act as uprights for a makeshift tent. Stake those into the ground. Run a cord from here down to the ground, across, cord there down to the ground, and then lay a tarp over the top. And I've got myself a ready-made tent. And I always keep an extra blue tarp, little thin blue tarp inside here in my hatch, just for any emergency. So if I'm out and about in the wilderness, I have a stakeout pole, but also another stakeout pole for whatever reason. Hiking stick, you could call it. But also a place where I can make a shelter. And it takes up no more room than this little groove right here. And that's it. So, staying in place. Two different things without an anchor. Doing something just a little bit different. And I think it does a pretty good job. That's the end of this video. Come back for some more.